Welcome everyone to our latest ALTA Insights webinar, ALTA's free presentations on issues important to title professionals. I'm Deirdre Green, ALTA's Director of Professional Development, and today we've got a great webinar lined up for you to help you successfully interview and onboard employees remotely. This can be a difficult task in person, let alone with the adjustments you've had to make due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Whether or not your employees are working remotely or you're simply trying to reduce contact, this webinar will help you through the remote hiring process. Before starting, I do need to touch on a few housekeeping items. A copy of today's presentation can be downloaded from the GoToWebinar handout section. All participant lines are muted for today's presentation. If at any time you have a question, please submit them through the questions box in GoToWebinar. We'll hold some time at the end for Q&A. And as an added benefit, we are also recording this webinar. Once it's processed, the recording will be available on ALTA's website at alta.org/webinars. Again, that's alta.org/webinars. I'd also like to thank Qualia for sponsoring today's presentation. Before introducing our speakers, here is a quick word from our sponsor.
Hi there, I am Debbie Brooks, and I am the owner of Prominent Title, along with my husband, Joe Brooks, and we are located in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we are open for business.
My name is Bethany Payton. I'm the manager and majority owner of Total Title LLC, based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are open for business.
Hi, my name is Sultana Huck, and I'm the managing partner of Stonebridge Title Group, the title company that services all of the state of Florida, and we are open for business.
My name is Ray Manuel. I'm the Vice President of Operations and Sales for National Title Solutions, located in Woodridge, Illinois, and we are open for business.
We're not the medical field, but we are still doing something very important, and then that is still holding up this side of the economy. To be considered essential is a privilege.
Okay. Thank you, Qualia, for that message. Now let's meet today's speakers. We have Donna Anderson. Donna is Assistant Vice President and Agency Development Manager for North American Title Insurance Company. Also joining us today is Jennifer Lidke. Jennifer is the Human Resources Manager for Town and Country Title. Both speakers serve on ALTA's Talent Committee and understand the challenges title companies face when trying to handle this important process remotely. With that, I am going to turn the presentation over to Jennifer.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Deirdre, can you, I am not actually able to see the presentation.
Okay, let's try this again.
I apologize. Yeah, technical issues, right? Everything we're trying to figure out with the remote interviewing and onboarding and just kind of living in a remote world today with the title industry. Looks like, there we go. Okay, I got it now. Thank you so much. So yes, thank you for joining us today. I'm Jennifer Lidke. I'm the HR manager with Town and Country Title. We are located in, headquartered in Holmen, Wisconsin, with our locations scattered across Wisconsin and Minnesota. So today I'm going to be reviewing the remote interviewing process, along with Donna doing the onboarding piece of today's presentation. So some of the topics that I will touch on will include remote recruiting for your new employees, including the job postings, referrals, phone and in-person or video interviews, also touching on personality testing, and then Donna will touch more on the onboarding piece, which would include identifying your onboarding team, onboarding your new hires from their home and what that would look like, And then, of course, developing the community engagement that goes along with this and our new hires. All right, so first things first, you finally identified that you are ready to hire, which is always a great feeling, joining and adding new team members to your team. So you ask yourself, now what? You want to make sure that you have your job description, have a really concrete outline of what the expectations are for the position, what qualities you're looking for, what skills you're looking for, and those abilities that would be ideal to fill the position. Making sure that you're checking out the ALTA Compensation Index. That's a great tool to use to make sure that you're aligned with your compensation range for the position. And then, of course, identifying your hiring team. So gathering different key team members on your team that will go along with you through the hiring process to identify the best applicant out of your pool. So once you have those three pieces, you're going to post your job. And so you think to yourself, where do I post my job openings? So a great place to start is the online job search engine. So we've all heard of Indeed, Monster, ZipRecruiter is a great one. And then also state-specific workplace development sites. That one might actually be the best place to look right now with the current state of people searching for jobs. Maybe they're laid off or what have you. That's a great place to also post your job. But with Indeed and Monster, those are usually the most popular sites that people are using to search for job openings. Of course, skipping down to the company website, if your company does have a platform where you recruit and post your job postings on maybe a careers page, that's a great thing to consider. If you don't already have one, simply putting an add-on on your web page to include a careers page, whether you post the jobs there or maybe you just leave it open. Have people submit their names and resumes all throughout the year in case you're not sure when you're going to have open positions. You at least have that flow of applicants that have interest in specifically your company. Hopping back up for social media platforms, LinkedIn is also a really great place to search for applicants. They do have a platform in which you can post your job. I know that if you're heavy into the recruiting side of things, you can update or upgrade your profile to a recruiting profile on LinkedIn. And that's a great tool that I've personally used for our company to recruit team members for that. And then Facebook. Everybody has a Facebook. Hopefully your company has a Facebook. Social media is a great way to get out to the customers, whether they are or are not buying, purchasing, selling, looking for a job, what have you. So I know Facebook has recently developed a platform for posting jobs. What I do personally, we post it to our company Facebook page, and then we really encourage our team members as well to push that out to their personal social media networks. It's right along with our referral. So letting your employees use the opportunity to refer people that they know to your company is a great way to do it because they know the position best. They may be working in that position. They may be working in the same office as that open position. So it really allows your team members to also be engaged in the search, finding that best applicant. One thing that I have seen across the few companies I've worked for is when you're promoting that referral program, having some sort of incentive to doing so. So providing maybe a small a small bonus of some sort once a new hire has hopped on board. That's a great incentive. Maybe it's logo wear, whatever it may be, however you want to develop that referral program. That's always a great way to, again, engage your team members in being part of that process. Moving forward to remote interviewing. So after you've posted your job and you have identified an applicant pool, going through and making sure that, let's see, didn't move forward here. There we go. Okay, so once you've identified your candidate pool, you've gone through the applications, you see what type of qualifications that the applicants have. So where do you go from there? So say you have 10, 20, 30, if you're lucky. Oh my goodness, this keeps popping around. If you're lucky to have a lot of applicants, going through those applications can be kind of daunting, but it's really important that you take the time to go through each individual one, because you really don't want to accidentally skip over somebody that could be a perfect fit. So really understanding what you're looking for, again, identifying those skills and abilities and qualities that you look for in someone's work history is important. So what we do at Town & Country is I always start with a phone interview, and really what this allows me to do is I contact the applicant via email first, and secretly that is a way that I gauge their communication style. So are they professionally communicating with me over email? Then we set up a time so that we both can set that time aside during the day, both uninterrupted, so we can have a conversation about the position. During the phone interview process, I ask very basic questions. Have you visited our website? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are you looking for in your next role? And of course, they walk me through their resume so I can fully understand what their experience is. And then again, knowing what they're looking for in their next position. And that also, in addition to the email communication, really allows me to gauge their verbal communication as well. So are they speaking clearly? Are they speaking professionally? Is the conversation going well? Are they not engaged? Are they engaged? Are they enthusiastic about the position? Those are the types of things that you can really easily gauge through a 20 to 30-minute phone conversation. After that, once you've identified your top candidates out of the phone screening process, and especially now with everything going on, the remote process of it would be to do a video interview. So there are many platforms out there. There's GoToMeeting, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, whichever platform you choose, allows you to connect your hiring team and then the applicant to review the position, go through questions, and essentially do the interview process as if you were in person. After you've done the in-person or video interviews, your virtual interview, some companies do choose to do a personality test. And really what the personality tests help identify is who they are outside of their job. So it allows you to identify if they fit within the criteria or characteristics of your top person. Building a candidate profile is something that would be really important to the process. So again, you have a very firm understanding of what you're looking for in a person. You can teach somebody how to do the job. You can teach somebody how to do those skills. But what's important to identify is that they fit within your company culture. They have characteristics that would make them successful in the position, because as we all know, there are characteristics different from somebody who does a search or examining side or production side of title versus somebody who's on the closing or escrow side of title. So it's important to identify those traits and see how people fit into those. Some of the different personality testing platforms include a DISC assessment, Acumax, Predictive Index, and then an Enneagram. And some of these tests can be free. Some can range to be about $150. So it just really depends on what your price point is and if you truly want to, integrate that into your interview process. All right, one thing with the video interviews is it's important to connect your hiring team with via the video platform. So making sure that everybody is able to be involved, especially with people working from home. Maybe you're scattered across different parts of the country or parts of the state, and it's difficult to get to one place, maybe the applicants halfway across the country. Investing in that video interview platform, the video sharing platforms is really important and a very, very easy way to connect your team. So a few things to remember when conducting video interviews is to be personable and smile. So making that applicant feel comfortable and relaxed, because watching themselves on screen can honestly be just as stressful or scary as them being right in front of you. So remembering to just ease the process, let them know that, hey, I don't really care what's behind you. There's no necessary need to have a fancy backdrop or whatever. But it's also important that we as interviewers engage and make sure that, are they professionally dressed? Are they taking this interview serious? So we just want to make sure that we integrate a few of those factors. A few do's and don'ts for video interviewing. So one, test your tech, making sure that your video and your audio is working. Nothing's worse than having technical difficulties, but it is important to know that sometimes it happens. Perfect example of me not being able to see the presentation, but you make do, and you just have to have that level of understanding that sometimes things go wrong, but you want to make sure that everything's working prior to you hopping onto the interview. Second, you want to set the scene. So having an appropriate background or scene behind you, making sure that no windows are open with loud motorcycles or lawnmowers. Make sure that you don't have your pets or anything walking around. We just want to make sure that if you are doing it from home or if you're in your office, that you're setting that scene and it's appropriate for the interview. Third, you want to have an agenda or interview questions. It's really important that you have those set questions so that over each applicant that you're interviewing, you have consistent benchmarks for questions being asked and what you're looking for with those answers. If you don't have interview questions developed, on the ALTA website, under the HR page, they have a wonderful bank of questions that you can pull and pick and put into your own pool of questions. So make sure to check out the ALTA website for those. And then we want to also be mindful of time. So making sure that we try to stick within maybe an hour and a half time frame, and that, the expectation is clear so that you as the interviewer and your hiring team, have that expectation of where the questions are going to go, the time frame, and such. And then again, making them feel like they're welcome and engaging with the applicant. So if you are at your work computer, making sure you're shutting your email or you're not, texting on your phone or looking at other things around your desk. It's important that we engage and we give 100% undivided attention to our applicants because they're giving us their time. And we just want to make sure that we're trying our best to conduct the video interviews similar to our in-person interviews. And then lastly, you want to showcase your company. So they've made the decision to apply with your company. They've hopefully done their research on who you are and what it is that you do. And now that you have them engaged in a platform where you can see them, it's important that you showcase your company. So talk about your culture, talk about how awesome your team members are, talk about your processes, and maybe delve into more detail of what it is that you do. Different things like that. So, talking about how awesome your company is. So that leads me on to handing over the reins to Donna to talk about, you've identified your top candidate, you've extended that offer, and now you've hired them. So Donna, do you want to talk about the onboarding process for new hires?
I would love to, Jennifer. Thank you. But I actually have a couple of questions for you first, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So you mentioned several different personality sort of tests or assessments. I was just curious if you've used several, and if so, two parts. What is your favorite, and do you use it other than just for the hiring process?
So in the past, I have used the DISC assessment, and we only used it for the interviewing process. And again, that helped us identify the types of characteristics that the individual had, and if they would fit into the I guess, perfect mold of what we were looking for in an ideal candidate. It did it went into the hiring decision, because you have people that may tell you one thing, but their personality or their characteristics are the complete opposite. So if they're being honest with the DISC assessment, it kind of gives you the points of different characteristics and what you may be looking for your ideal candidate.
Have you ever had an instance where you've not hired the person because what they portrayed themselves to be wasn't actually what their assessment showed?
Not necessarily, but it had been. We haven't not hired somebody because of that, but it did go into consideration and how we would be, because in this specific instance, and this wasn't with Town and Country Title, but in a previous experience I've had, it went into, we really wanted this person and their DISC didn't come back maybe as perfect as we had hoped. But we tried to see if there were ways that we could adapt. Maybe there was different things within the job description that we could, adapt to the candidate. You have to just be careful because you really don't want the assessments to be discriminatory in any way. So you have to make sure that you're handling those assessments with care.
Yes, I've talked to several title companies across the country too that use one called predictive index. And one company I'd spoken to actually used it with his existing employees and ended up switching people's roles around and found that they were much more productive and happier in their jobs too. So I think that's, even after they've been hired, it could even be a great tool to use in the office. So
I completely agree. And that goes right alongside building your perfect candidate profile. So looking at your best team members in the positions that they're in and trying to look at the type of characteristics, maybe their experience that they came from, where they came from prior to joining your team, and using that as a profile. So of course, we all know title people do not grow on trees, but it's important that we be a part of the solution and start growing them on trees. So we have to get a little creative on, how we're doing our hiring and who we're hiring, and maybe giving, people who don't have title specific experience a chance. And that's a great way to incorporate those candidate profiles and also the personality testing.
Great. And I have one more question for you. Have you ever done any sort of role playing when you're doing a video interview with someone?
We have not. No. We do have behavioral based questions, but never in a role playing sense.
Great. So something happened to our slideshow.
It did. I'm going to open it back up.
Okay.
Thank you. Have another.
That's good information. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Donna.
I know that when in the past, when I interviewed for a management position, part of the interview process was role playing from the very beginning of the call till the end. So when you got on the call, it was as if you were already in the role, and it was very intense. It was a fun practice.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So as Jennifer mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about onboarding remotely. In our company at Natick, anybody on our sales team typically works remotely. And so we've been doing this for several years. I've been a key part of that process for about 4 years. And so we've come up with, I think, is a pretty good process. So I wanted to share that with you all. So you've been hired. Now, what do you do? We're going to cover in this how much teamwork is involved in onboarding. And of course, this is all going to depend on the size of your company. You might have a very small team that does the onboarding of your new employees, or you might have, like we do, several people that are involved in the process. So I'll cover what that looks like. Also, one of the things that we found that makes us most successful when we're doing an onboard is having a checklist and a timeline. Not leaving it to chance that things are going to get done in time for them to start with you, but that we have everything in place so that employee has a day one experience. We want them, their first day at our company, to be a day of celebration, welcome to the team, exciting for them as it is for us. And so we have to have a checklist and a timeline in place to make that happen. I'm going to give
Donna,
you
I just want to confirm you see it again.
I do, yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. And so then we're going to talk about what happens the first 90 days after they've been employed as part of the onboarding process, because bringing them on and just getting them trained the first week or two is not really enough. You know, we need to make sure that they're really, as we're going to talk about, develop community with them when working remotely. For those of you who this is new to you, having your employees not be in the office. I mean, when you're in the office, everybody can meet at the coffee pot and catch up over the weekend, but that's not the same when you're working remotely. So how do you do that? And we're also going to talk about how you can really engage remote employees and keep them. You know, retention can be an issue if people are working remotely. So first of all, let's talk about who's your team. So I'm going to talk specifically about our company because we have a team of a lot of people that it takes to onboard someone successfully. So first of all, we have people that do the training. I am one of those people. So when they get started with us, I do some training on some of our software platforms. And then we have other folks that are, their specialty is other software platforms that they'll have training with them. We also have outside sources that we use. So we'll talk about that. We also have our marketing team that gets involved. They have very key roles in getting this new employee going and trained and marketed out and making that part of that day one experience excitement. We also have the manager of that person, whoever that manager is, and maybe even their manager are going to be involved in the onboarding process. We involve peers in the onboarding process. When somebody joins the company, the peers have a role as well. And our HR department, of course, is going to have a big role, and we do use some outside sources. So we're going to talk about each of that. I clicked once, I'm going to wait and make sure it doesn't go too far. Okay, so onboarding your employees remotely, what is your timeline? So there's some things that you can do before they get started, and that's all going to depend on what your lead time is. So our preferred lead time, especially for a sales team member at Natick, is a good 30 days. We want to make sure that we have enough time from the time that they are ready to start with us to have that day one experience. And we've found in the past that if we rush that timeline, it doesn't quite turn out to be as much of the experience as we wanted it to be. So we're trying to really streamline the process. Even now, we're continually streamlining our process. And when I say that day one experience, when you have a new employee that joins your company, you want them to just be like, wow, I'm overwhelmed. And not in a bad way, not in an, oh my gosh, I can't, this is too much to learn and it's too stressful, but in a, wow, I just feel so welcome and already part of the team way. And that they're wanted and appreciated, and we're excited to have them here. So we really work hard to that. And I'm going to show you some of the ways that we do that. I'm going to show you an example of a timeline. And just so you know, there's lots of different project management sort of software that you can use. I mentioned a couple here. We started with Microsoft Excel. So simple, most people have Excel already. And that's the example I'm going to show you, because you can definitely use Microsoft Excel to do some sort of timeline. We have migrated to a program called Asana, which is a project management program, and that is not free. There is a fee for that. However, we use it across different platforms in our company. We use it for our IT projects, our onboard projects. I oversee onboarding all our new Natick agents as well, and we use it for that too. So we try to utilize it in a lot of different things, and we've become very, very systematic, but that helps eliminate mistakes. So this is a sample of our onboard timeline. I didn't give you the whole thing, and I kind of made it a little bit more generic. I don't want to give away all of our secrets at Natick, but I do want to share some of them with you. So first of all, I'm a big color coder. I like to see things, so I know what color it is. I'm blue, I'm onboard specialist. So when I see blue, I know that's my job. But if you see here, I have day minus 21. So we did shorten it from 30 days to 21 because we found 30 days, most people want to get started before that. So we did shorten that up. And so we have certain things that we do. And one of the things that we'll do is the offer letter is sent, and that starts the timeline. So once the offer letter goes out, we've already had a meeting of the minds. We know that we want to hire this person. We know they want to work for us. So the offer letter goes out in the email, and the clock starts ticking. And if you notice that HR is the orange field, so most of the stuff up front is going to be HR, which is typically most companies. But as soon as an offer letter is signed, we also reach out to them for some personal information. We want to get a bio from them. We want to ask them for a copy of a headshot or have them go get one. So then when they get started, we're ready to go. We want to know, are they in a relationship that we want to send a card and congratulate their partner or spouse or whoever and say, hey, we're so happy, here's a gift card, take them out to dinner. Something like that beforehand, as soon as the offer letter is signed and returned. And then of course, like most companies, we do a background check. We obviously have to do that. We are an underwriter, and most title companies, I think, do that now as well, to be best practices and be safe. And so then we get everything we need in the background between day 21 and day 14 that we're going to need to send to marketing. So the section I cut out there is all the stuff that's going to go in the background now. Once we have their personal information, their bio, their webpage, we know everything about them we can possibly know. We are all, they're just sitting and waiting to come work at Natick, and we are all busily working behind the scenes to get everything set up for them, their database, everything that they're going to need. So we have that beginning of the timeline, and then I brought it down to day -3 because now everything's been done on our back end, and we're just waiting to get this employee started with us now. So one of the things that we'll do is we have actual books that we like to send to our team members, no matter who it is on our Natick team. It's some culture books that we really believe in, and so we want to have those sent, and they get them the day before they start. We don't expect it to get it read the day before they start, but we want them to have it so that they know how we are at Natick and what we work. We get that headshot sent up to marketing. We get their photo loaded to their internal company website page. And then we ship a kit to them. And this is part of the experience. So they're going to get so much stuff the day before they start. It's going to be their computer, their phone, their printer, their scanner, their swag, coffee cups, pens, everything that they might need. And then they also get something from our marketing team saying, hey, pick out some clothes that you want, pick out some branded Natick items. And so they're getting bombarded the day before they start. And I've had so many of the new folks say to me, wow, it was like Christmas Day. And that's what we want the experience to be. We want it to be like a celebration of, hey, you're on board. So also the day before, I reach out and say, I introduce myself and let them know that I'm going to be scheduling training with them for probably day 2. We don't want to overwhelm them too much on day 1. And then so I'm usually their first training person, and I have a lot that I go over with them. I will check and make sure all of their computer is set up properly, make sure every website they're going to need is set up. And often, there are glitches. So a lot of times I'm the one who will reach out to IT or somebody and let them know. I give them an overview of who's who in the company and what kind of role that they are. And then I talk about what I do for the sales team. And I also, at the end of that first call, which usually is 2 to 3 hours, I set up calls with them. And I think this is what's kind of unusual too, with everyone on our executive team and heads of departments. So every person that comes to our team has a Zoom call with everybody that's a head of a department or on our executive team. So even though we have layers at our company, every single person who starts gets a Zoom call with everybody else in the company to say, hey, we're all on the same team here and we're all with you. And we didn't used to do Zoom calls before COVID. We just did phone calls, but now I think it's even better because they're seeing the person that is on, the heads of the department or the executive team. What we've always done in the past then is I've scheduled about a month out to take them all to the corporate office and have each of those departments spend an hour with them and do like Q&A and talk about how they function in Natick and how we work together as a team. And it also builds some camaraderie there, but we're not able to do that right now either, especially because our corporate office is in Miami. And if anybody's following the news, Miami is like in a world of hurting right now with this virus. So we're not going anywhere near there. So after I do my session, I usually have 2 or 3 with the new employee, spaced about 3 to 5 days apart. So I give them some time When we used to do this, I used to block out a whole day, and I was told it was like drinking from a fire hose. So they needed me to space it out over time. Because our marketing team also does an onboard with this new employee, and that's going to be a few different sessions of an hour or 2 hours. So there's a lot of interaction. And while this is all going on, we also have our corporate training that they need to do, which is not a ton, which is great. But they do have videos they have to watch, and they have phone calls with our corporate office. So the first 2 weeks we have an employee, they are just barraged by getting to know who everybody is. And I've told our new employees, listen, your job right now is just to figure out where it is you work and who you're working with. So getting them on board is a big deal, and it's exciting. And one of the things that we also do day one is an email will go out to the entire company from whoever their manager is, sharing their bio, sharing a little bit about them, and saying, please welcome to the team. So I will tell you that I've heard from every new hire, I have never had so many emails my first day on a job ever, but most of them are just welcoming them to the team and saying, I can't wait to meet you. And so we do really make it a special event. So now they're onboarded, and you need to do the work to make a community. So first of all, there's a lot of books about this out there if you haven't read any. One book that's a real short book, and it's great, is called Onboarding, and it's by Dr. Gia Suggs. And one of the comments that's made in that book is, if your new employee does not develop relationships within the first 6 months of employment, then they're much more likely to leave if given another offer. So we really took that to heart in our company. And so one of the things that we do for every new agency team member is we have a weekly Zoom call. And we did this before COVID. I've been doing this for years. And the call has evolved over time. And now it's become much more of, I call it a check-in chat. But anybody that's under 6 months in the company, and now it's been more like 6 to 9 months, has been joining that call every Friday. And the topic could be anything. It could be several topics. Sometimes it's just open discussion. What are you dealing with? Obviously, we're talking a lot now about what are you doing to reach out to people in this time for the sales team? How are you reaching out? We have a couple new marketing folks that are a part of this call, which has added a different element. It's nice. We have great conversations. And it must be successful, because people that are released from the call say, no, I still want to be on it. So that's a good sign. And you know, when we're not able to be together, those Friday calls for this new group of people that are new to the company, they're developing relationship because they all feel like they're in the same boat. You know, we're all fairly new to the company together. We all have kind of the same questions. And so one of the things that I do when somebody joins the call for the first time is I have everybody else that's currently on the call tell them, you know, what territory they cover, what their role is, and then 2 questions. What is your favorite thing about working at Natick, and what do you wish you knew the first 30 days that you didn't? And I will say that the majority of the time, the favorite thing about working is the fact that we have an amazing connection in our team, even though we never see each other. We only see each other on video. And I think we're just very intent about that. I mean, between the weekly call that we have, there are other apps that you can use to stay connected. So we've kind of switched everything over. It was to MS Teams. If you're not familiar, it's a Microsoft product. But instead of emailing things to the team or anything like that now, I just put everything in our team chat. And so if I have files to share with them, or I'm doing a Zoom webinar with maybe a vendor, then I can just put it in the team chat, and anybody that wants to participate can. Excuse me. Also, we also do team projects. Oh boy, bad time to get a thing in my throat. It's because I'm talking so much. On that call, I'll also assign them homework. And so we'll have team projects, and they can help each other do the projects and then come back to me with them. So that also builds community as well. And then one of the things I'd like to do as well is just once in a while, because major part of my role at NATIC is developing that community. I'll just send like that group of folks, maybe a motivational meme or text just out of the blue in a group chat on my phone, just to say, we're still working on developing community and relationship here. So that's the key to retention, right? And engagement is developing relationship. If somebody feels like, if they're always saying, I feel like I'm on an island and I'm all working on my own. And I will tell you that when everybody was traveling all the time, that was a comment I heard all the time. I think one of the things that we're not traveling so much it's helped with people feeling more connected, because we actually see each other, talk more. People have more time to talk more time to get on a Zoom call than they did in the past. And so that's really been helpful to do that, develop that relationship. And, it's also one of the things that's probably a struggle when in engagement is keeping people accountable without micromanaging them. And this is the big thing. I mean, anybody that knows about micromanagement, it doesn't ever help anybody be a better employee. But you also want to know that they're accountable and that they're working. And so I'm just going to throw in a comment here that's my observation is that in this day and age, and especially, and I'll address this because there's so many different generations in our workplace, and a lot of you are hiring millennials and even maybe Gen Z now, right? And their time frame of work might look differently than what you look at. And so my 2 cents is, if their job is getting done, so many people are working at home now, and so many, I would say, company owners or managers are not used to having their employees at home. And so there are some that are worried that maybe their employees aren't working, that maybe they're, out, at the gym or at the beach and not at their computer or doing something else. But we have found that, you are working at home, so you're not going to the coffee pot and talking to your other employees. You're probably way more productive. One of our teams in our company told me that her team, she's like amazed that their productivity has doubled since they've been home. They're on the computer every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, whereas they used to be driving to the office and getting there at 9, and they're not getting distracted. So I think the only way to keep them accountable is the work getting done. And if the work's not getting done, then you have a problem. But if it is, it sounds like that they're engaged. And even if they do have to take half an hour to switch out the laundry and go get the mail, they're coming back to their desk and getting their work done. So I think if employees are engaged and they've developed relationships and friendships in the company, and there's a good team atmosphere, they're going to want to do the best job that they possibly can, even if they're working remotely. So Jennifer had mentioned earlier the compensation index that's on the ALTA resource site. We also have the sample interviewing questions available for you, and job descriptions and advertisements, and a new hire checklist. So if you haven't checked out the human resources page on the ALTA website, you really should do that. I think there's so much information that most title companies or people are not aware is available for you, and it's going to be continually added to as well. So I just want to thank you and see if you have any questions.
Donna, I have a couple questions for you. Just hopping back to the accountability without micromanaging. So what type of tools or systems do you have in place to ensure that there is that accountability, and in addition to that, engagement? How do you decipher whether or not those things are happening?
Yeah, so I would say one of the ways is definitely having goals or timelines, and having check-ins. We are very big on doing monthly one-on-one calls and setting goals monthly, and doing sort of reports for metrics on this is what's expected of you, and this is what you did or went above and beyond and did. So, but there's also, I have somebody that works on my team, and I check in with her 3, 4, 5 times a week, probably every day, but just check in with her. Oh, one of the things that we do that's very important is we're super transparent in our company. and everybody's calendar is visible to everyone, and not just busy, but full details. So you can see what anybody in our company is doing at any given time. It's really beneficial for scheduling appointments because we all can see what each other are doing. But I was had an IT department person once scheduling a meeting, and she's like, Donna, did you realize your calendar is fully transparent? And my boss was sitting next to me. He goes, that's the way we roll. Like, we all know exactly what the other one is doing. And we also utilize Skype. So you can see if somebody's online or away or, busy. And that's helpful too. So, bottom line, you hopefully you hire the right people to do the job, and you can get out of their way and let them do it. Right. But
Right.
you have to have other check-ins.
Okay. And then I have one other question. So while you're going through the onboarding process and you're, making those connections with the executive team and with different departments, do you have any sort of buddy system that you connect your new hires with, maybe somebody in their department, or I guess more of a mentor, somebody that they can directly and individually reach out to throughout their, first 90 days, first 6 months?
Well, yes, and that's usually me. As far as I'm probably the one in the company that knows if I don't know the answer, I know who has the answer. So typically when they get started, I'm that go-to person of, hey, if they have a manager that they know that they have to ask certain questions of management. We have underwriting counsel. So if it's underwriting, they need to go to the attorneys for that. But if it's who does what, or how do I do this, or how do I make this happen? Because those questions come all the time. Then I'm typically the go-to person for that. So we do and I tell them that on the onboard call, listen, don't spin your wheels going to all these different places trying to find an answer. Just ask me and I'll tell you who to go to. So I do try to make that as seamless as possible. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yes, that does. Yeah, so one thing that Donna mentioned throughout her onboarding process is that day before, they're getting all of their swag, they're getting their computer, they're getting all their things that will essentially help make them successful in the position. And I think it's important to note that, she got the comment that, wow, this is like Christmas. It's important to carry that enthusiasm through the entire process, not even in the interview process. You want your applicants to be enthusiastic, know that they're joining a great company, know that they're going to be working with great people, and then, of course, carrying that on through the onboarding process and making them feel welcome and making sure that they feel like they've made the right choice in joining your company, just as important as, your company making the right choice on choosing them for the position. So I just wanted to mention that having that enthusiasm is so important throughout the entire process.
And one of our things that my boss does is when he's hiring or interviewing somebody for a position, especially on our sales team, he tells them, go on LinkedIn, find a team member. I don't care who you call them, ask them what it's like to work here. And I think that's great because he doesn't say, oh, call this person or that person. He said, call anybody on our team and ask them what it's like to work here. And to have the confidence to know that it's okay to say that and not worry about what that team member might say. And they do it. I mean, I've gotten the calls sometimes. I know when people have started, they've told me of different people they had called before they started, but he encourages them to call 3 or 4 people. Just go on LinkedIn, find 3 or 4 people and give them a call. And I think that's great too. You can encourage somebody to do that. We're checking you out, but you check us out too. Make sure it's a good fit.
Right. Definitely. Well, Deirdre, did you get any questions from people listening?
We do have a couple of questions. And as a reminder to everybody else, we are in our question portion. So please submit any questions you have through the questions box. The first one we came in is maybe not quite the interviewing and onboarding life cycle of an employee, but what happens in this kind of remote world if you need to reprimand or perhaps fire a team member? How do you handle that remotely? Phone, video, what's your advice on best practices?
Sure. So obviously that is not an ideal situation to have to handle remotely, but also recognizing that it has to be done, and you want to make sure that you're handling that situation with care. So ideally you would want to have somebody sitting in front of you. So in my opinion, I think that it would be necessary and respectful to schedule something over video. If you're truly unable to be in person, scheduling something individually that is personable, individually on a video, I think would be the best way to handle that situation. Donna, would you agree?
I would agree. I think that I would imagine that you would have some sort of script that you would need to stick to if you were doing it on video, so that if there was any sort of reaction or emotion, you could handle that appropriately. I think that would be probably the only thing that would be, I mean, I've been on phone calls before where there's been an emotional reaction. So being on video, you have to even be more composed as you're delivering this bad news, which, might be a little difficult sometimes, but in this day and age, everything else is video. So I think that would be too.
Yeah. And another thing to consider too is, the steps that you have to take after you deliver that bad news. So if they are working remotely, how are you going to get the computer back? Do they have notes and different items at their house that, are company property? What's your process? What is that process going to look like as well? So kind of having all of those pieces at least laid out, and then hopefully, having a respectful relationship with your employee enough to make that process go as smoothly as it possibly can to get those items back.
And that's a really great point, because you have to shut down their internet access to your servers and their phone access, and let any software developers know if they're on the cloud that they need to be terminate their access, or you do it as an admin. So there are a lot of things to consider there on the remote.
Yep.
I'll give another plug for the resources on the HR sample library on the ALTA website. I believe there is an offboarding checklist of things to consider, all those kinds of things, IT, email, everything like that. So check that out as well. Our next question is, have you ever used the Simmons personality test? And if so, what do you think about its validity?
I have not, and to be honest, I'm unfamiliar with that, with what that is, so I cannot unfortunately answer that question. And what did you say it was called? Sims?
The Simmons personality test.
I will have to look into it. I do not know.
Could be another option. Next up is, my company uses Zoom for phone audio conferences now, but not video so much. Do you have any suggestions for ways to ask or request video conferences be implemented?
So I'll take that one, because I noticed it's been an issue. And when we first switched over to the video portion of it, I had some dissenters. I had some people, we would be on a call and you've got those 3 or 4 people that just don't want to share their camera. And on the call that I talked about, the Friday call, I've made it mandatory. If we're going to be on a weekly call where we're checking in and developing community, I want to see your face. Unless you let me know ahead of time, there's some reason you can't. And sometimes that happens. Maybe somebody, I had somebody who had some facial surgery and she's like, I don't want to be on the camera, so that's totally fine. But I noticed a trend. Certain people don't ever want to share their video. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to enforce, because it's almost like invasion of privacy, I guess, if you're really demanding that they are on video. I do, just so you know, I do some of the agent onboards too, and I always have my video on. And a lot of times the people that I have the meeting with that are title agents don't. And I was on one recently that had like 12 people on it, and one of the people shared their camera, just one. And I said, wow, it's so lovely to see somebody else's face other than my own on this video chat. And everybody turned their cameras on. So it was really nice to see that. I don't know if sometimes people just feel awkward, but a little tip on that too. I'd read once, they said, if you're on video chat, what are you constantly doing? It's like looking in a mirror, right? You're always looking at yourself to see how you look. So they recommended turn your own camera off so you're not seeing yourself, but everybody else can see you, and it makes you less self-conscious. So that might be a tip that you could pass along to others. Did you have a comment,
Yeah.
Jennifer?
I just personally think that by being on video, it allows more engagement. And I guess I have been guilty of being on Zoom meetings and turning off the camera and cooking dinner and listening to the call and multitasking, but it also doesn't allow me to fully engage and really, I guess, concentrate on the call itself. So, you know, like Donna said, really encouraging people to turn on their video, you know, whether or not you want to make it mandatory, but I think being visually there does go a long way. So.
And I would say the more that we've done it, the more participation we've had. I think it's just taken some time for people to get used to it. I mean, we've been doing it exclusively for 4 months now, and I would say we're probably at 90% participation, where in the beginning we were maybe at 50. So I think it's definitely, people are getting more used to it.
Yeah.
How do you train while remote? Do you use a screen share?
So I use Zoom. I used to use Skype and do screen share, but Zoom actually seems to be much easier, but you can use Skype as well. I used to use GoToMeeting. So there's lots of different ways, but I actually get in and have them share their screen and then get remote control as well, so that I can fix things if they need to be fixed and that sort of thing. So that's how I do it.
And we do it the exact same way, and we utilize GoToMeeting. Prior to COVID, we never really did anything remotely because of where our locations are. It's usually pretty easy for somebody to get out to our offices to sit with people. But with COVID, we definitely invested in getting signed up with GoToMeeting, and we do it how Donna does it. So we'll make the connection, and then they'll share their screen, and then we'll have control and kind of walk them through. So it really allows, if people learn better by doing, they're able to do the clicks, and then we just are kind of standing in the background, right? Watching where they're clicking and providing advice and training that way.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I hadn't thought of that. Okay, looks like we've got one more. What kind of questions are asked in the testing phase? How personal are they?
They're typically more behavioral. So would you given a situation, how would you react? A, B, or C? Sometimes they're mathematical questions. I personally am not sure how that ties into it, but it does. So it's just, do you feel this way more than you feel that way, and kind of developing those personality questions. So I guess, developing, how you would react and how you feel about certain situations.
One of the best questions I ever heard as an interview question was, tell me about the last time you failed in your job and what did you learn from it? And I just think that's really good, asking about somebody's failure, rather than their success.
We have a very similar question throughout our interview process of, them providing an example of a time that they did something wrong professionally, and what did they do to correct it, and how they would move forward to make sure that didn't happen again. And that, again, you want to, of course, concentrate on their successes, but equally important, you want to see how they would handle a situation if they, made an error or made a mistake of some sort. So I think those are just as important.
Okay, I misspoke. We have one final question. I'm sneaking it in because I do think it's a good one. It says, overwhelmed from friendly welcome gifts received on day one. Great. What is the plan at the end of the first day to not feel overstressed and to allow them to make progress on day two?
Great. So that's when I tell them that your only job this next week and a half is to just get acclimated to your surroundings. Don't feel like you have to get all your training in at once. Don't feel like you have to respond to every email. You're just learning the company you work for and feeling your way around. And so we do give them a good week to 10 days of just settling in, making those phone calls, getting to know your team, getting to know everything at Natick before we expect you to like start pounding the pavement or doing something like that. We want you to feel like you've arrived and that you can breathe. So that is very important. And that's a great question. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Donna and Jennifer, for your expert insight. I think it'll really help a lot of people here. If you missed parts of today's webinar or think others in your office would benefit from listening, the recording of the presentation will be available afterwards at alta.org/webinars. You'll also get an email with a link to the recording. Finally, I'll give one small plug. If this and other talent-related topics are of interest to you, I'd suggest registering for virtual ALTA 1. There's 1 week left on our flash sale, which gives ALTA members the lowest price they will see prior to October. The member rate during the flash sale is $199. So there's going to be content similar to this and other important topics. So I definitely recommend registering. So that brings us to the conclusion. To wrap up, I'd like to thank Qualia once again for sponsoring today's webinar, and thank you for joining us. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.